place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show. It's just about 7:27 a.m. this morning. I'm Julien Skeete, and we're heading on into our next interview this morning with Rhondall Fields, and he's the president of the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, joining us online. Good morning to you.
Morning, thanks for having me.
Yes, good morning to you.
Morning, you hear me?
Certainly. Hearing you loud and clear. All right, and as we get the conversation started, tell us a little bit about some updates, outstanding achievements for 2023 for the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago.
I mean, we always make mile-mark achievements. I would say for the year gone by, we've been able to once again advocate for a number of fathers who would have been most of the times parentally alienated from their children. We were also invited to the International Men's Day function that was hosted by the government of Grenada. We also were part of that planning committee and the execution of that function that actually took place at the end of the year. Again, we also held our 13th installment of our traditional I Love My Community Christmas event, where we always award a young man and a young woman, one from Trinidad, one from Tobago, who's done exceptionally well, or who's shown some level of reformation in their life. We are also this year, we are also minted a very new award called the Father of the Year Award. So we were able to give these awards out at the end of the year. We had over 3,000 people attending that event as well. So this year, as always, was another impactful year, and we look forward to doing more in this year to come. Last year was an impactful year, and we look forward to this year again.
All right, Rhondall, we congratulations on all your achievements. We know that you are, an advocate, as you mentioned in your prelude, for fathers' rights, an advocate to ensure that fathers have they play an integral role in the lives of their children and in the home and in the family, because, a home without a man, can be problematic. So we support your cause and we understand the importance of that. Now we're talking about the crime surge in Trinidad and Tobago at the moment. We've seen coming down to the end of 2023 an increase in crime, and even heading into 2024, the crime situation seems to be, we're just overwhelmed with what is happening right now in our country. And of course, some of these crimes are murderous crimes, meaning taking the lives of people. And of course, this means one less person in a family. One less person to mentor a child, one less person to contribute to the development socially of a child. What is your perspective on the surge in crime right now, and how does it affect the homes of the families, the family life, the family culture, the family structure in Trinidad and Tobago at this time?
If I'm allowed to, I think I would speak to the issue we have in Atlanta, why we're seeing the surge. And I think it's because for decades gone by, we've failed to address social issues. I think we failed to realize what crime really is. And crime really is bad social behavior. It's a behavioral issue that we have. And for some reason, I've been on many committees, I've been to many crime talks, been on many things that's supposed to find these solutions, or at least have discussions and finding solutions. And it always some legislation that is demanded. It's always, and I'm saying these things are not important, it's always when it comes to more vehicles, more guns for the police, but we always seem to falter when it comes to social issues, when it comes to development of good social strategy to correct this bad behavior. You see, I don't see crime as something that is race specific. I don't see crime as something that is gender specific also. If they were, every time we went to the hospital and a young boy was born, he'd automatically become a criminal. If it were, anytime you went to the hospital and a young black person was born, African person was born, they would have been a criminal. And when you really examine it, there's any minority. It's in the minority of males that are perpetrating crimes. There is in the minority of Africans that are perpetrating crimes. And we are not developing the right social issues. or creating the right environment to foster better social behavior in our communities where we live in Trinidad and Tobago. And to me, I think what is required is an overhaul, a reconstruct of our social involvement in our society. We need to get corporate to take up their corporate social responsibility. We need to get parents to take up their social responsibility when it comes to parenting. We need to get the community members to take up their social responsibility. Where it used to be a long time, where we had that agape love, where the neighbor looked out for the child, where the parent allowed the neighbor to discipline their child. It is because we have this social deconstruction that criminal behavior is at an all-time high, at an all-time upsurge. Is morality and respect. All moral ethic is now out of the door. Children seem to have more rights than their parents now. Some legislatively driven as well to support that. So this is the issue that we're having, and for some reason, I don't think, and I mean, I have sat even on the post-COVID team, we pay a lot of attention to a lot of other things than the social development of our people, developing the right type of environments, investing in the human resource so we get better social behavior from our society, from members of our society.
Rhondall, what do you say for those who make the point that even when we try to do that from the perspective of our institutions, sometimes the downfall comes right back to the homes that these children are forced, by virtue of circumstances certainly beyond their control, to go right back to?
Correct. So, I mean, if our social programs, then we say the social program is failing, because there must be an examination of what the real core social issues are. And one thing I think we often miss as well, we can be honest to say that men are, I would say, the greatest perpetrators of murderous crime. But we need to also see that men also are the greatest victims of murderous crime. We can also, with statistics of 550 men being murdered 2022 out of 605 people dying. We also see other social issues that men are encountering when we're talking about 94% of men being homeless. When we're talking about suicide, we're talking about social issues of men up to 260 between 2019 and 2021 committing suicide. So we are seeing that we're having a social issue with a particular section of our society, yet we are not coming up with strategies to address it. And if we continue to fail to do so, then we will always have an issue when it comes to the education system as well. You're seeing young boys falling behind. You're seeing programs being developed for girls only, ICT for girls, and a number of things, while none is being developed together for young boys. Instead of developing things for young girls alone and young boys alone, why aren't we developing educational stuff for young children? So we are seeing social issues, particularly to the males, and then saying, why are men becoming more violent? Why are men now more unemployed? We'll be seeing these issues around us, and we are not addressing them. So if we don't address these things, and unemployment goes high, and the education of men fail, and men continue, or males rather, not only men, continue to go down, it's obvious they will go down into negative behavior. But we are failing to address some of these issues.
As president of
Even
the fathers,
they are the greatest perpetrators, sorry to cut you, and also the greatest victim of murderous crimes and many other crimes.
What would you say, as some of the potential methods for having a greater inclusion of men? And let me start with one of the examples that you've used in our education system. We go into our schools now far and wide, across Tobago, and I'm sitting across Trinidad and Tobago. And, those setting the example and guiding the ways are indeed, in most instances and in high numbers now, exceptional women. Would you say that some kind of direct incentive and encouragement needs to be placed, perhaps, to get some more men, even as model mentors and so back into our school system, so that there's that greater balance and the burden isn't exclusively on the woman trying to make that kind of change and impact in our society from as early as the very young days through the primary and secondary school system?
I agree with you, and the word I like that you're using is encouragement. We need the encouragement. We need empowerment. We need to help men. And you might say, why I'm being so particular with the language that I'm using. The language is sometimes coined in a way that you need to fix men. And that is why many times they stay away from coming for any type of assistance. But we need to encourage males. We need to encourage young boys, give them opportunity, let them know that it could still be scholastic if they attempt to do so as well. Not leave them out of programs boldly and out throughout the entire nation. Go on campaigns that empower young men, empower adult men as well. And if we're honest, we failed to do so for quite some time. I mean, we've been gathering statistics, but really and truly, we haven't been gathering statistics on the issues that men face. I always talk about it. The Ministry of Planet just did a statistical study on women and girls, and they left men and boys out. How can you do that? How would you know the issues that men are facing? How would you know about the statistics I just quoted when it came to homelessness, when it came to unemployment, when it came to how badly they're doing at school these days? How would you have this information to correct the behavior of men and young boys unless you show some type of interest? We need to understand, particularly for young boys, and that's why I believe you're seeing now the increase in all this gang violence and gang recruitment, because they are the ones that drop out of school these years. I can imagine the number of boys that didn't go back to school. I'm not saying there's not a percentage of girls either, but I'm sure by the vast majority, it's boys that didn't even go back out to school and were told to go back to work now after COVID. You understand? What are we doing to now give them better alternative? Because if they can't find a good way to earn, what do you expect them to do? Fall into the mentorship and into the hands of the gang leader. And one of the deadliest things is an immature young man who's full of testosterone, who's full of energy, full of strength, muscular fortitude. He could be a deadly weapon. That's why in some nations in the world, they purposely create small soldiers. So I think this lack of attention that is paid to this very key element of our society, which are boys and men, who I say again, are the greater perpetrator of these murderous crimes and the greatest victim also. It's one of the issues that we have to solve it. I mean, murderous crime and all the other subsets of those crimes.
Rhondall, would you say that a cultural change also is needed in our society, especially if we take the advice that you're giving? We really need to provide a level of encouragement and support for our young men and our boys. But what is in a situation where the support is given and now a young man feels, well, the peer pressure of somebody's looking at me now going for assistance, for instance, mental health issues or some type of peer pressure or social issue that I am facing as a young man. The support is now here for me. How do I accept this support with my peers looking on and saying, boy, is a soft man? You know the slangs and the tones that we use here in Trinidad and Tobago. There must be, are you saying that there must be a cultural change also from the recipient end as well and the community at large to ensure that when these programs are rolled out, that our young men and our boys will advance, they would step forward and say, listen, this is me. I need this type of help and I will embrace it so that I can improve my life, because we know it's challenging, especially peer pressure. It is really challenging, especially with the advent of social media and everything now being accessible and available. How do we approach our cultural approach to this situation now to ensure that when we embark on these projects and programs to assist and support young men and boys to change their narrative, how do we ensure that they embrace and accept the help that is going to be rolled out for them?
I mean, and you answer your question within your question, because that was exactly what I was going to say. The narrative needs to change. And the narrative of the advocate, more so than anybody else, needs to change. The narrative of the pastors, the narrative of our leaders need to change. We need to start to speak in a particular way that empowerment, opposed to just pulling them down all the time. That is why men will flock to the Fathers Association, even though the issues may not be related to fatherhood. It is because they believe that there is a space now that they can be heard. And that is why we are overwhelmed. That is why we cannot address and assist everyone. Because it is only one space that men seem to be hearing anything positive about men. Where, in fairness and reality, there have been more good fathers than bad fathers, particularly in this generation that were raised, young men who were raised without fathers and understand the value of fatherhood. There have been good men more than those men that create problems and men that have been abusive. There have been more men that provide and take care of their families more than those are not. But the narrative is not that. The narrative that we have infiltrated upon our society is that men are bad. So no matter what, once you are male or men are a risk, men are dangerous, so much that you are having calls from young women to have sometimes a gym only for women alone because they believe having the man in the gym is a danger. When I can guarantee you, it is the vice versa. You are safer with good men around you. So the narrative nationally must change so that when we now fertilize the community, because that is how the communities are fertilized. They listen to what the pastor says, they listen to what the Rhondall field says, they listen to what the advocates say, they listen to what the feminists say, they listen to the advocacy that comes to their ears. And we must now have a greater sense of responsibility there also, social responsibility, when we put in messages into the society, from state as well. When you're talking about things like sexual abuse, you know how many young men and boys are sexually abused, but because of shame, they will never say it. There are young men that are robbed and raped. They will go in a station and report the robbery and never say they were bothered because there's a stereotype of what, I mean, they may be ridiculed right in the very station itself. And because it is that we have that social stereotype around, many times men are afraid to express themselves, unwilling to express themselves. Sometimes when they express themselves, they are condemned because their voice are heavier or their voice louder. Even in their homes, when they're trying to make a point sometimes to the wife, they can't speak and express themselves because it is interpreted as negative behavior. So I think the narrative from on top needs to change generally about men and manhood, generally, and men for even the benefit of men and younger boys as well, so they would understand what good manhood looks like as well.
Indeed. Thank you very much there, Rhondall Fields, President of the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. We've got to leave it there for now, but certainly a very good indication of the passion and drive going forward for 2024. And we look forward to the kind of impact that certainly this has to be an all-round approach in terms of treating with, and having a head-on kind of hit for treating with this issue of crime. And therefore, in that context, Adanna, it takes us right in to our next guest coming up.
Right.
Certainly taking on that responsibility at another level to seek the kind of intervention required. In fact, in Tobago, and dare I say in Trinidad and Tobago. Who do we have up next?
Up next is Bishop Terence Baines. Bishop Terence Baines is up next, and we're going to have that conversation as we continue to deal with the matter of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, specifically in Tobago. Viewers, we are going to go for a short break. And of course, before we go to the break, we invite you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be back.